Welcome everyone to Higher Moment Mastermind. Delighted to have you here for our Friday morning job search pick me up. My name is Shira Lotzar and I am a higher purpose champion. My tagline is for every hire there is a higher purpose. I'm an association recruiter, I'm a career coach, love people, tell people with their branding, boost their resumes, LinkedIn profiles, networking and interviewing. I'm also the co-founder and volunteer of boomerworks.org, and our mission is to inspire and empower professionals age 50 plus to re-career into self-employment, and we offer free educational programs every couple of weeks. And so our guest experts today, starting with Michelle Wright, who is an executive recruiter in accounting finance. Normally we have Corliss Jackson, but today we have Wendy Thompson. Wendy, you can raise your wave to us, an expert in federal government resumes. Kiki L'Italien, our guru around all things social media and videos. And so again, if you'd like to chat with Kiki about your background and see how you're looking on Zoom, she's happy to give you some impromptu advice during this call. Vern Schellenger, who's our master network and relationship builder, and Jo Weech, who is all things government contracting. So format for today. So we are going to start with our typical 10-minute breakout. In that breakout rooms, you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to identify your group's top question, or actually could be multiple questions, and you're going to assign a scribe. So even if you have several questions, just make sure that that scribe is jotting it down so that when we get back into the main room, don't do it in the breakout. When we're back in the main room, chat your question there. And then also share any best practices from your job search. You know, anything that's worked for you, could be a tool, it could be a tip, just advice, what have you. And try to make sure that everybody has equal time to share, right? Because we want to make sure that everybody's, got their time, because everybody's, different personalities and so forth. Okay, and so next we're going to do advanced questions when we come back to the main room. There were several that were asked of me prior to this meeting. We're going to do our group discussion. Now, for our group discussion, please make sure that you remain muted while you're in the main room so that the experts have enough time to share advice. So if you have any questions, comments, whatever, please post your questions in the chat and we will do our best to answer them. At 10 o'clock, we're going to do a 10-minute speed networking. That's just a little bit shorter than normal. And the reason is that I've noticed that once we get to 10 o'clock, we're still kind of active. And so we're going to actually do our Q&A until 10:05. I should have made that note here. And then for 10 minutes, we'll do our speed networking. And our speed networking, which is different than the first breakout, that's where you're going to share your job search goals and share any leads with each other and really let people know what you're looking for. Please keep in touch with our Power Networking spreadsheet. It's a Google Doc. And the recording of this whole session will be on this link. And Kiki is going to post both of these links in the chat box right now. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get into our 10-minute breakout room. So go ahead and give me just 1 second here while I get that all together. Okay. All right, so go ahead and hit the blue join button. And experts, please stay in the main room and I will assign you. Michelle, you should actually you were already assigned. Let's see here. Kiki.
Shira, you've got me in room 2.
I am moving you. Sorry. Vern, here you are. I think 2 of you are going to end up in one room.
Right. So room 3.
Yes. Actually, it looks like you're together there. Sorry. Apologize.
All right.
We're trying to make it work here. All right, Wendy, do you have a room?
Yeah, 1.
Okay. Go for it. Sorry if there's some overlap here.
My rooms keep shifting.
Yes. We'll make this work at some point. And Joe, are you not assigned? Oh, there you are. You're not assigned. Okay. There you go. Vern, do you have your room? All right, for those of you who are watching this recording, please go ahead and fast forward about 7 minutes and you'll join us back in the main room. Hey, Kelly, we're in breakout rooms, so I'm going to assign you to one right now. Hi, Tammy. We're in breakout rooms for another couple of minutes, so I'll go ahead and assign you one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry to join so late.
That's okay. We're just coming back in from the breakouts. Everybody's just piling in the next 20 seconds.
I knew I was going to be late, so I tried to time it where I wouldn't interrupt the
All
session.
good. Thank you for doing that. That's very nice of you.
Sure.
And make sure to put that question in the chat box that we talked about offline.
Okay, I will.
Please do. Thanks.
I was just clapping for you, Daniel. Sometimes the breakout rooms cut off too quick.
All right, so let's go ahead and have the scribe of your group go ahead and start chatting in the box the different questions that came out for your group. And while you're doing that, we're going to start with a pro tip. So Jo Weech, one of our experts, has one. It's actually a technology tool. So Jo, do you want to go ahead and share with everybody this fabulous tool that you've been hearing more about? You're on mute, Jo. Jo, can you unmute?
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So I think I can minimize this. There we go. So can everyone see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so this is jobseer.ai. So job, not seeker, but seer, right? .ai for artificial intelligence. And every person that I have sent to this website to just try it out has found that they have minimized their job search by as much as 50%. And what it does is that it says right here that it will help you to find out potential salary ranges, company insights, and uncover recruiters' contact information with the Chrome extension that's compatible with LinkedIn, Indeed, Google Jobs, Dice, and Handshake. So what you do is you are uploading your resume, and then it's scanning for jobs, you know, that match the parameters. See, there are all these different things, job titles that you put in, the geographic region, you know, like location, years of experience or whatever, and then it tells you what of a percent of a match you are for those particular jobs. And that really helped me to hone in, okay, if I was only like a 47% match, and I could see that the things that I was missing are things that I really truly am missing, then I would just swipe left on that and keep going. And so it's just a really wonderful thing. And it also can give you contact information of who to keep in touch with, like some of the people who posted the jobs. So then, it's just really been, it's phenomenal. It's actually was started by Hire Tool, and they are a tool that many recruiters, use to be able to help find you. So now they created things for candidates to help them find the employer. So I can't more highly recommend.
This is great. And Jo, to the best of your knowledge, is this cross industry? Does this sort of
Oh, yes.
aggregate everybody?
Absolutely. It's everybody.
Fantastic. Actually, while we're on job search tools, and Jo, you didn't know I'd be asking this, but I think you are probably the person to continue to help us since you're so tech savvy. So I got an advanced question. I'm going to read it. It's a little bit long. It says, do you have a recommendation for a CRM system or an app to track my networking activity? I'm currently using hunter.co to track my individual job opportunities and a spreadsheet calendar to track my networking, job search, and training activity, but I'm looking for an app that tracks my networking, Zoom calls, informational interviews, contact names, blah, 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 that ideally provides a dashboard, right? Like number of interviews per week, number of LinkedIn connections accepted, and so forth, and provides a tickler or a follow-up on the activity. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, there's actually a guy who created an app for that. You know how they say there's an
App for that? Yeah. Bless
but
you.
I'm going to have to find out what he named it, but I also know that jobseer.ai may also have that functionality in there. And I personally like to track jobs, like when I'm applying through Evernote. For me, that's the ultimate project management system. And I like the fact that you can attach, different things to it. Google Docs also are really great. And I think it's just a matter of, if you don't want to pay for, a platform, you can make do with Google Docs, Evernote, and then you can actually have links to all of the things, like if you have people's LinkedIn profiles, you can drop the link to that in, a spreadsheet to be able to track it. So, but I will find out, I don't know if it's Job Finder, but I will definitely look at that when we get off, and then I'll send it to you, Shira. But I think that might be something that, and I also think that costs though. So I'm all for free.
Yeah,
I
for
love
sure.
to do free, and then if something costs, then I'm a little more hesitant about it, but I will definitely find out what the price point is and what the actual name of that is.
Thank you, Jo. We appreciate that. And speaking of, while we're still on the topic of job search tools and so forth, somebody asked an advanced question here. Is LinkedIn Premium worth the fee? I get that question all the time. And since I'm a LinkedIn expert, I thought maybe I should answer it. Not really, or actually only under one condition, okay? So the thing with LinkedIn is that thankfully we get, so much richness for free. You can search, you can connect, you can post, you can do all these different things. One of the things that LinkedIn tries to do to make it attractive or appealing to go into premium is one of the features they give you is what I call an itch scratching feature. It's very social media, like, hey, you can see who's looked at your profile. Well, look, the reality is that might scratch an itch for you, might make you feel good. But the reality is that if the person looked at your profile, if they want to connect, they're going to reach out. And if they didn't, they didn't. It's not really going to affect you meaningfully. However, there's one condition under which I absolutely recommend that you do consider premium, and that is this. If you choose to do a lot of searching, so in the upper left-hand corner, there's a search bar. So much you can do with that search bar. If you do a lot of searching, what'll happen is, and I can't tell you exactly what point this pops up, but at one point, if you do lots of searching, a little box will pop up and it'll say something to the effect of, you have exceeded your commercial limit on LinkedIn. You must upgrade your premium. What do you mean by commercial limit? Well, if you've done that much searching, LinkedIn kind of assumes that you're either a recruiter or a salesperson, because those are really the two people who tend to use the search feature that much. If you're a job seeker doing that, like, hey, now you got to pay up, and that's fine. It's worth it, right? If you're doing that much searching, yes, you probably should. And so I did want to let you know that I have, and I do regular advanced LinkedIn trainings. I did one recently, literally this past week, and I put it on my website, and I wanted to alert you to it. It's a pretty long training. I didn't actually pull this up in advance, so let me do this because I wasn't thinking of it. Let me pull it up. Okay, so here it is. If you go to my website, purposefulhire.com, go to the Job Seeker tab, go to Shira Speaks to Job Seekers. And then down here are a whole bunch of videos that I've done. And this one here, this Using LinkedIn Like a Pro, is hot off the press. I literally did it a week ago. Okay. While you're there, I'm not sure if I mentioned this last week, I also did a very recent one on interviews that land the offer. So it's all about interviewing strategies. The video is here, the slide deck is here. And then just to remind you guys, for those who didn't know, so myself and Kiki and another woman, we did a whole hour-long presentation on using video. So using Zoom and the background and the lighting and all of that. So you've got a few different videos here, LinkedIn, interviewing, and reframing your image that hopefully will be helpful for you guys. Okay, so I wanted to mention that. So I'm going to continue on with these advanced questions because we actually had a lot more than we normally do. And one of them is this, and this has to do with working with recruiters. So the question is, what is the best practice for responding to, in this case, the person saw the post on LinkedIn, but it could have been anywhere, responding to posts from a placement firm. For this particular post, there's no direct information on the client the position is posted for. Although the job description requirements and salary are very appealing, I cannot review the client to see if it would be a good fit before applying. This situation applies to several postings I've come across. Do you have any thoughts? So I'm going to answer this initially, and then I'm going to also punt to Michelle, because Michelle and I are both in the recruiting world. So we understand what it is to work with recruiters. So I want to give you a quick high level overview of what this whole recruiter world is. We've never really talked about that here, but I think it's important. Recruiters come in different shapes, sizes, and colors, okay? So you've got different kinds. You've got recruiters who are called corporate recruiters. Those are in-house. So that's the kind of person who is really an extension of the human resources department. They work for the company. They only recruit for jobs in that company. They are an employee of that company. They're not on commission. They're just a regular employee representing the company. But then you have third-party recruiters. Some people call us placement firms, staffing agencies, although the term staffing usually refers to temporary placement. You have executive search firms. There's contract recruiters. Some people call us permanent placement. Some people call us headhunters. I mean, there's all this different nomenclature. But the bottom line is this. A third-party recruiter is paid in one of two ways. Either a contingent recruiter on a contingency, meaning they do not get a fee unless they make the placement. And then there's retained search. And retained search means that it's an exclusive relationship with the employer. The employer will pay that firm usually on a third basis. So they're going to basically going to get paid no matter what, and they're not competing with any other placement firms. So doubling back to this particular question, this obviously was a contingent recruiter, because what happens with contingency is that not only does the firm not get paid until the end, that also means there's usually no exclusivity with the employer, which means that any search firm could be working on that search, which also means that if that search firm decides to post the name of the company and it's only contingent, other search firms could see that and they could call the employer and try to get the search. And that's why they blind it. Okay, they're trying to protect themselves. So while we always talk about doing research on this, our HMM programs on Fridays, this is one of those times. Unfortunately, you just won't be able to do that. You're going to have to wait until you get interviewed by the recruiter, ask tons of questions of the recruiter about the organization, the role, mission, whatever. So at least in that call, you can do some due diligence to figure out, yeah, is this really something I want to go for? So by the time you hopefully get to a second level and get to meet with the employer, you have the backstory of the information. Now, of course, they will share with you if you do get passed through to the employer. Of course, they will tell you who it is. But in terms of that initial vet, you wouldn't be able to do much. So with that, Michelle, do you have anything to add? Just kind of expand what I've been talking about.
Yeah, no, that was a great overview, because I know some folks, just haven't had the need or had to work with recruiters before. But going back to the research part, I guess that's where a recruiter can actually help you. If it is the right position. I mean, if they have a good relationship with that client, they will be able to provide you a lot more background and context, for the role than you might be able to find, on their website. So a lot of the times that's not available. So in some ways, I don't think it can ever hurt, to respond to a job posting that looks interesting to you and learn a bit more for that reason. And another is if for some reason that's not the right role, I mean, that recruiter is most likely working with other companies that may work on similar positions or other positions. And so being part of that network can really expand your opportunities as well.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Michelle, as far as that recruiter maybe working on other similar opportunities, do know that recruiters typically work either in an industry vertical or a career vertical. So Michelle's companies, she works for Justin Bradley, and so they have traditionally been known for working in accounting and finance. Now they have expanded over the years, but that's kind of a lot of times been their core practice. And so that's a career vertical, meaning that a Michelle recruiter could work on a CFO position, a staff accountant position, anybody in between, right? I happen to be in my recruiting hat. I'm also a coach, but in my recruiting hat, I have an industry vertical. I work with associations, which means that I work in any career in the association world. So I can place a membership person, a marketing person, a government relations person, what have you, but it's all within an industry. So it's a bit of a different situation. Okay. And I have one more advanced question, then we'll open it up to the chat. And that has to do with salary, right? We have talked about salary here and there, but here's another interesting question. And that is, if the employer asks for salary in the cover letter, meaning they say, please mention your salary requirements, and they say that ones without a salary will not be considered, does that mean I must put a number or a range rather than just say negotiable? It's a great question. And before I answer it, let me just remind you guys that there's a little bit of an update in terms of the whole salary discussion. There's some legal considerations right now. There's about 19 or 20 states and counties in the union right now that make it illegal for an employer to ask you about salary history. We start with that, salary history. And that has to do with pay equity issues, just to make it level for everybody to have fair compensation. Now, as a result of that, there are some employers who are taking it to another step and saying, you know what, not only am I not going to ask about salary history, I'm actually not even going to ask about compensation requirements. I'm now going to actually post what the salary is or what the salary range is. That's a very progressive kind of a model. Not everybody's doing it yet by any stretch, but it's starting to get a little bit more traction. But for those employers who are still asking about salary, and they're asking it in the cover letter specifically, no, do not say negotiable. You've got to actually say something, because you know what, whether you say it in the cover letter or you talk about it verbally in the interview, either which way, it's going to come up. And so there's a formula that I like to invite job seekers to use. And I'll give you the formula and I'll tell you how to fill it out. So the formula is, when they say, what are you looking for? Say, I'm seeking a total cash compensation package in the X range. Now, and I put the word range in there, but I don't actually mean put a range, because if you actually put a range, what number are they going to give you? The lowest one, right? So you never want to do that. You want to put in one number. And the one number should be what I call your happy dance number, but it's a realistic happy dance number. It's a number that makes sense for your profession, for the industry, for the size of organization. Yes, you have to do some research. I couldn't tell you exactly what that is for you, but it should be a top end, realistic, comfortable number. But because you can always negotiate down, you can't negotiate up. And then you think to yourself, well, am I going to price myself out of the market? Well, probably not. Only because if you've done your research well, you're probably within a good striking distance of what that is. And if that employer really likes your background otherwise, what they will do is presuming you're not $50,000 off. In fact, if you were $50,000 off, it's not your job anyway, okay? Usually if you're within like a $10,000 or $15,000 spread, they will still call you and say, hey, I noticed you mentioned X, but you've got a great background. Do you have any flexibility? And then they'll negotiate with you. Okay. So to me, it's better to take the risk and put down something a little bit higher than putting down a lower number. And then you can never negotiate up. And the best time to negotiate salary is in the beginning. Otherwise, by the time you get to the offer, really hard to double back on that. Okay, so just wanted to mention that. So with that, I know we have a lot of other questions that we haven't even covered. So Kiki, do you want to kick us off with something that seems relevant for the moment?
Well, actually, one of the most relevant questions is right here at the top, because it actually does relate to a request for salary in the cover letter. This is requesting the salary, not what do you hope to receive, but actually what have you received. And so how does one handle that?
Meaning if somebody is still asking about salary history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And by the way, the whole think about pay equity. I believe that Maryland is now covered with it. So employers in Maryland, I believe, and Joe, I don't know if you have any more up-to-date information, but I think in Maryland, they're no longer allowed to ask it, but DC and Virginia, they can. In any event, yes, if you ask the question, this for salary history, here's the thing. The reason why they're asking is because they're trying to kind of gauge your level, right? So they want to see if you're kind of in a comparable range to where they're at, which says to them, oh, this is a person who's at who has the skill level. We deem this role at this level. They've been making something similar. We're good. The other reason why they're asking that is they want to try to give an offer that's comparable to what you've had. But we understand that there are always extenuating circumstances, okay? It could be you took that job because it was the last recession and you kind of had to do what you had to do. You worked for a small organization, a nonprofit organization, they had budget cuts, whatever. And maybe there was a story there. So if it's asked on an interview, what's your salary history, and you can't dodge it, then say what it was, but give the story. And say, look, this was an extenuating circumstance. The reality is I should have been at X, or maybe there was a freeze on salaries for the last 3 years or something like that. But if you can avoid it, do. Meaning if they say, what were you last making? Try to flip it real quickly and say, well, actually, is it okay if I share with you what I'm looking for? Mm-hmm. Try to deflect. If they still double back and ask a second time, don't be cagey, answer the question, but try first to pivot toward what you're looking for. Okay. All right, Kiki, next question.
So this one might be for Michelle. What is the best way to get in the pool for government contracting jobs?
And Joe could also answer that too. So yeah,
And
Michelle, do you want to start with that?
Sorry, yeah.
That's okay.
So just to clarify, so for government contracting jobs, meaning working for a company that performs work for government agencies. I mean, the thing with government contracting is there's a lot of very specialized, specific, whether it's knowledge around regulations or systems that usually corporate recruiters or HR look for, and that's usually in the requirements. So obviously the one thing would be to perhaps use jobseer.com and make sure your language is going to be aligned with the job description and the company, and then also really, again, utilizing your network. So kind of similar to what I'm sure Shira has been telling you all the time. I mean, when you see a job posting, do your research, see who you're connected with, reach out, connect. Those would kind of be the first, couple steps.
Great. Thanks, Joe, anything to add?
The most important thing is that a lot of government contractors have contracts wherein their employees that work on contract have to have a security clearance of some type. Mm-hmm. So if you do not currently have a security clearance, then those are going to be jobs that you will not be competitive for. Everyone says, oh, I'm clearable, but it costs a large sum of money, for companies to expend on getting you cleared. It's not just where you fill out a form and then you get your clearance eventually. The background investigation is very comprehensive. So I would say that about the exception of that is if you are a Java developer with any amount of experience, then that would be something that, and you're happy to work at entry level, then there are companies that will sponsor for that because they are in such high demand and need. But otherwise, depending again on what your background is, look for the companies that are doing work that don't require clearances. So it's really simple to do. When you want to look for government contracting, you just look for, not just, I think the best way to do your job search would be to look for your actual title, like program manager or whatever it is. And then you will look at all of the companies that come up, and it's real easy to do a quick search because as recruiters, we're doing this to see who our competition is. If somebody works at XYZ company, we immediately go to XYZ's company's career website to see what are they posting up and if they require clearances. So it's just a real easy way to do this, but keep an Excel sheet and throw in.
Come here.
Oh, hey, can everybody put themselves on mute? That would be great. Thank you.
if you put, page 1 will be all the ones that require clearances and you wouldn't be viable for. And then page 2 would be the ones that don't mention clearances at all in their job postings. And it's a way to actually keep track of it so that you don't have to keep repeating yourself.
Terrific. Thank you so much. By the way, if any of you have raised your hand or have a question, if you could put that in the chat box, that would be fantastic. Well, just to keep track of that. Kiki, next question.
Yeah, we have these questions about reskilling and upskilling. So this is a very specific question, but it is related to, do we need certifications once we go through some of this process? This specific question asks, if you want to transition to coaching and mentoring, do you need to get a certification? But I think it is good to know for other types of.
Yeah, specifically, and I can answer that because I am a coach. No, you don't. Coaching is not a regulated field per se. There are lots of people who get into coaching. That doesn't mean you shouldn't consider it, because there are a lot of wonderful coaching certifications that will upskill you to give you expertise, whether it's an executive coaching, career coaching, life coaching, leadership development coaching, what have you. There are some fantastic programs out there, and you may want to consider not only getting a certification, but joining ICF, the International Coach Federation, to kind of be in that community. But technically, you don't have to get certified to do that. Like I come from many years of recruiting, and that's how my coaching evolved. And so I felt I didn't need to get certified because I have the practical experience. But if you don't, you may want to do that. As far as other certifications, it's a pretty big world out there in terms of what you need and what you don't. That question was more about probably going into being a solo entrepreneur. But as far as the technical side of things, and Joe, maybe you can speak to this, but of course in the technical community, I know certifications and badges and so forth are pretty important. Joe, did you want to comment at all on some of the hot certifications out there if people want to upskill?
I would say that look at the most up to the minute technologies that people are now leveraging. Back in the day it was Ruby on Rails, then it was Groovy on Rails, and then, people are looking at AngularJS, Angular 2, and probably, it just depends on if you're front end or back end. Back end, you're going to at least be able to be familiar with Splunk and be able to do it on a MongoDB. If you're on the front end, truly Java is the most important language you need to know. And so I would say a Java certification, and then being able to show your work, if you will. I can't stress this enough. The certifications mean nothing if you can't demonstrate how you can use that knowledge. So GitHub is like a portfolio for whatever projects you're doing. Seriously, I don't know that we've hired anybody, in tech roles where they had to be developers, right? We would go to their GitHub and repositories to see exactly how they're using what they say they've learned. So that's kind of like your proof in the pudding. You don't even need a certification if you can prove that you have phenomenal coding abilities, and you're demonstrating that on GitHub.
Yeah, and it's GITHUB, GitHub. Great, thanks. All right, Kiki, next question.
Well, while we have Joe talking with us, there is, if she could just, Joe, if you could just tell us, does Job Seer work in every industry?
Well, I've had people who have been hourly wage earners who have used it, and I've also had people at CFO level use it, and pretty much in between, so the people that have gotten back to me are people who worked in like precast concrete sales account management, an underwater archaeologist, wow. People who have done obviously IT, almost any IT position, any tech role, but finance, healthcare industry, they're just a wide variety of industries. So if there's a job out there being posted on the World Wide Web, then you're going to be able to find it.
It sounds like it's an aggregator.
I feel like when she said underwater archaeologist, we kind of had it covered, right? I mean, like,
well, he's a certified underwater archaeologist. And there were, at the time that I had to recruit for them, there were only 6 in the United States. So
now we know if you're upskilling to being a underwater archaeologist, go after the certification. It might help.
Nice.
All right. So our next question, for someone who's not worked with recruiters before, what's the best way to work with a recruiter?
Right. So doubling back on this, this a narrative that Michelle and I gave just a little bit ago. I think maybe we need to reframe the question a little bit. Sometimes when people say work with a recruiter, they're actually thinking more in terms of being represented by a recruiter. So remember that the recruiter represents the employer, not the job seeker. It's always important to keep that in mind, right? That's where the loyalty is. So if you want to work with one, you're working with them, again, depending on the level, whether it's a corporate recruiter or a third-party recruiter. A lot of tips. In fact, we could probably spend an entire session giving tips around recruiters. But remember this, recruiters and hiring managers in general are looking to minimize their risk. They're looking to minimize their risk. And you want to think about every single aspect of the journey where they could have some risk. They could have risk in compensation. They could have risk in culture fit. They could have risk in terms of the skill level that you have or don't have. They could have risk in terms of what your career goals are. How well you fit with the mission, with the industry, with the sector. Think about all the different areas, right? Pre-COVID, maybe post-COVID, and my commute might come back into the picture, right? Things like that. Anything that might make the employer say, uh-oh, too much of a risk. Could be anything, right? So be thinking when you're looking at the job announcement, when you're being asked questions, all of those questions are designed to minimize risks. So answer it in a way that makes the employer, makes the recruiter feel safe. That's really my best generic response to that. We could pull that apart in every possible way, but I think that's the best thing I can answer. Okay. All right, Kiki, next question.
Okay, I actually have a question that I received as a direct message, and it's, I think, best for Vern. You tell me, Vern, what you think. It has to do with networking, and this person says that it seems like there are fewer opportunities for real networking to find a job now than there were before. Do you have any advice for this person?
My short answer to that is, and I get to ask this question a lot, now that it's a virtual world, how do I network in a virtual world? And my short answer to that is you network the same way in a virtual world as you do in a face-to-face world. There are some differences, but in today's environment, you're just going to have to accept that meeting people is going to have to be through Zoom or some medium like that. The likelihood of having lunch with someone is, pretty remote. But as a way of an example, if I ask Kiki, what's the accomplishment you're most proud of, or tell me a little bit about your background, tell me about your industry. If it's an informational interview and I'm trying to learn about this industry, I can ask her all those same questions and her answers won't be any different than if we were having lunch together. So it's still making that connection with someone else and being able to ask your questions. And as a job seeker, the more questions you ask and the more you learn about the job, the industry, the trends, other people you can be connected to, that's where the value comes in.
Well, and if I can also share too, Vern, that, there's the whole idea, some of this is what are the channels of networking that are available now? It used to be you'd show up to the local, whatever, the chamber, the chapter, the this, the that. What's fascinating about COVID now is that the networking opportunities have actually expanded. You may not realize this. People who otherwise were relegated to only hosting a networking meeting at the hotel of whatever, or the Starbucks of whatever, now have put it online. And now people all around the country, sometimes the world, right, are joining in on these meetings. So if you can start asking your colleagues, where are you networking? What Zoom calls are you on a regular basis? So for example, in the association community, Jamie, I don't know if you know about this, I hope you do. Every morning at 8:30, there's this group run by a colleague, her name is Nicole, and she just started this, what she calls the Association Coffee Chat. And she started it back in March, I think. And it's just this half hour every single morning during the week, little call, and association people get on. It's not just for job seekers, it's sort of for everybody. And they just kind of chit chat about this, that, and the other. And people have made some really interesting connections. And that's just one of 1,000 examples that might be in your world, but you've got to ask. Oh, she also has a happy hour here on Wednesdays. Okay. So you just have to ask your colleagues, where are people gathering online? and then show up, right? You don't have to do traffic. There's nothing, you know, that should prevent you from getting online. Of course, use LinkedIn, right? Be searching around, and, you know, go back to your first level, your what Vern calls the dormant connections, right? People you have known in the past. Do a search in your first level contacts. Who haven't I talked to in a while? Just to catch up, see what's going on. You never know what's going to come out of those meetings. And I've mentioned in the past, 2 or 3 of the experts here on this call are a result of just a quick, hey, catch up. Vern, Joe, Julian, actually, those 3 just had random calls with them, hadn't talked in years. And now here they are, right? And you're getting to benefit from them. So just make sure to reconnect and resurrect those relationships. Okay, Kiki, I know we have a couple more minutes.
All right. This question is a really great one. I have frustration finding more senior level opportunities which are not ubiquitous. What about adding text to the resume to communicate interest in senior roles? Any red flag advice or experiences with pursuing a lower level position, either to get involved with a company or to use the interview to discuss higher role opportunities?
Yeah, that's tricky. I think most of us experts could speak to that. And Vern, I'll punt this to you in a second, because I know you've been in that senior HR role. Actually, Joe, so have you. But I would suggest this. It is tricky, because remember I said a minute ago, employers are trying to minimize their risk, right? So if you're trying to go for a senior level role and you're applying for a lower level position, it's a flag. It's just a very legitimate flag for the employer to say, well, why would this person be applying for this job? Should I take my time to interview somebody who I believe is overqualified? Now, that said, if you network your way into the role, if you find that internal champion, somebody who can grease the skids for you, even someone who could specifically say, look, I'm at the VP level. I know that the opening that you have is a director level. However, I'm interested in this organization for XYZ. Hey, internal champion, could you grease the skids for me? Could you at least get me some kind of interview, even if it's informational, to say, you know what, I'm open to other kinds of things and this and that, and just to get yourself in the door. But if you're just applying with your resume, the chances are you'll get screened out. It's usually important to get somebody to back you up. So Vern, I'll just punt to you. Anything what else you want to say?
Not much more, Shira. I mean, you know, like you say, it's about risk. It's about, you know, if you're trying to get to a higher level job and your resume doesn't have those skills, or you don't have that background, again, it's just hard to get past those kind of gates as you're going through the whole process. So.
Yeah, but people are trying to find as much of a lateral, you know, situation as possible.
Yeah.
We are at 10:05, but Kiki, is there like maybe one more question that's like, oh, gotta answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So I have to say that I had, I saw this question come in toward the bottom, but I think it applies to everyone. Any apps out there that help center your eyes in the video window rather than toward your camera location? Okay. So let me tell you about a DIY thing that all of you can do if you don't have control over, you know, where your window is, or you struggle with finding, you know, how to put your window in the right place so it looks like you're looking into the camera. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to show you this. Okay, this is fun. Do you have these like when you were holding the documents on the tables, right? Anything like this, they're very inexpensive. They're clear. You can look through them. Yes, you can reposition your window on the screen, on the computer screen, but some of us really struggle with that, especially if we're presenting or using slides, right? So here's a little handy dandy thing that you can do. You can affix, and this is just like you would put on hanging things on the wall, and it has this Velcro thing.
By the way, Kiki, before you keep going, if you turn your view right now to speaker view, you're going to get a much better shot of what Kiki is showing. Okay, so
yes.
Go from gallery to speaker view.
So what this does is you can actually see through it, right? And you can position your camera so that it is in the middle and you are looking through your view here into the camera. And I've heard from several professional speakers who just swear by this because they never felt comfortable with positioning everything underneath the camera. You want to make sure it's centered on there really well. Underneath the camera that's on the top of their screen. Now, I personally, I don't like to have anything in the middle of my screen, but if you're someone who needs to have several things open on your screen and you want to look like you're looking directly at people, this is one DIY kind of thing that's very inexpensive that works. And you can just attach your peripheral, your USB camera, and then place that on the screen over where you're going to look at your slides.
And another tip, thank you so much for that, Kiki. And this one particularly works for Zoom. In fact, you could all do it right now. Minimize your Zoom screen. So right up top in the upper right-hand corner, that's that little minimize button, minimize it. What'll happen is whoever's talking, so it's me right now, will turn into a little tiny box. Move that box right underneath your webcam. And the two features of this, the benefits are, number one, it'll make it look like you're looking into the camera when you're looking at the person. And number two, the cool part is now your computer's exposed, meaning you can pull up whatever documents you want. You can be reading, taking notes, what have you, and you're never breaking eye contact because you're looking at the camera, but you're also, looking or reading or researching.
There are other, if you end up having to do anything where you're reading a script, there are teleprompter apps and things like that. But if it's just for stuff like this, when you know that you're going to be on for a while in a meeting, something like this DIY, if you don't feel comfortable moving the windows around or they keep expanding and contracting while you're talking, that might be a solution for you. So.
Terrific. Thank you so much. All right, so with that, we're just going to go ahead and wrap up here real quickly. Before we go into the breakouts, and so just want to remind everybody how to get in touch with us. So here's all of our information. And by the way, we would really love for you guys to help us to continue to promote Higher Moment Mastermind. I know there's a lot of us regulars on here right now, and we would really always love to get new folks. And so I'm going to put this in the chat, just the link to our group. If you want to go ahead and grab that and share it with your colleagues. There's a lot of job seeker groups out there. I think you've all seen these before. Here, they're all free on Zoom. And I am now hosting a bi-weekly newsletter called Higher Moments, and you're certainly welcome to subscribe. And of course, I always like to end with an inspirational quote from the Bible. Yes, my soul find rest in God. My hope comes from him. So we're going to go into the speed networking time right now, 10 minutes, and just go quickly around the room to share your what your job search goals are right now and what you're looking for, and share any leads that you have with each other. So here we go.
Hey, Shira.
Yes.
Just let you know that the search is unlimited now. Mark Goldstein from CNN told me it's unlimited now.
Searching on LinkedIn?
Yep, it's unlimited.
Oh, thanks for the update. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Great. So
Yeah, 'cause-
you don't have to use
that's-
premium anymore.
Yeah, that's why I had premium. And he goes, no, that's the only thing you get on premium is
Fantastic.
you can do in messages.
Yeah, the in-mails. Great. Thank you.
But
Thank you.
other than that, though. Sorry.
Thanks so much.
One more thing, that device that Kiki showed, what is it called?
So this is just, you mean for the screen, like this little screen itself? It's just a document holder. So like you put it on a table when you're putting, so there are different kinds. Let me go grab the link to the one that I bought most recently on Amazon, and I'll put it in there, but there are all kinds of different kinds. So
Yeah, because I was going to go on and just get something. I love that's great. But
I'll get a link, and then
You can get one at Staples. It's real easy to find.
Yep.
Yeah.
Staples, Office Depot, they all have them.
No. I just want to say you guys rock. You guys are unbelievable. And Vern, there's so many network opportunities out there. I mean, I'm getting killed with all these things. So no.
You should never get killed with network opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. And that's so anyway. I'll shut up now. Bye-bye.
All right. Feel free to join your groups now. Hopefully you're all in the right one. And experts, I've already put you in different ones. And if you are watching this recording, feel free to fast forward it again another 7 minutes and we will wrap up. Okay, we're all back. So just to kind of wrap things up, I think I'm actually going to open back up to our experts just to keep things kind of tight here. Experts, was there anything from your groups that you thought was interesting that maybe people should hear about? Any tips, advice, anything that I think everybody would benefit from hearing? Joe?
Actually, I was looking at what one of the persons was talking about. She had, it's like I had two really great people, Kimberly and Madeline, and Kimberly was telling a story and Madeline just jumped right in and said, you need to condense that and that can become your elevator pitch. So I think it's really great when we have the opportunity to just share a little bit about our stories or things that are highlights in our careers, because then if somebody else is hearing it, it resonates, that's gold right there.
Great. Always good to get some good encouraging feedback. Terrific. And Kiki just posted in the chat a link to the plastic background, I don't know what you call it, that she was talking about, if you guys want to grab that through Amazon. All right.
Yeah, acrylic paper holder.
Paper
is,
holder.
I think.
Yeah. Vern or Michelle, anybody want to share anything else from your groups?
Kelly brought up a good point in talking to Jeff about, again, informational interviews. And the one thing I would add there is if you're trying to get an informational interview and it's just kind of a cold call, to somebody and you're asking for their time, that's, that it might happen, but it really works really much better when you have kind of some warm introduction.
Mhm.
Your brother-in-law can introduce you to somebody and they're going to take the call or take the 20 minutes because, they know your brother-in-law. They don't know you from, man on the street.
Well, and that's why when you're about to, when you're looking for that informational interview, put the name of the person in the search bar in LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And if that person hopefully is a second level connection to you, look at who your mutual contact is. Open up that person's profile. You'll see under the highlight section, mutual connection. You might have one or more, 5, 10, whoever. Find the person who's closest to you that you have a relationship with, hopefully.
Yes.
Who can actually make the introduction for you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so with that, wish everybody a blessed week and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Make sure, again, promote our group so we can help as many job seekers as possible. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
Good week. Bye-bye.
Good week.